Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to talk about the television.
Woohoo!
Woo! Yeah, this is a special episode of the movie podcast. I'm Sky Jitani. Joining me as always is Josh Lindsay.
Hello.
And just a reminder that we are joined by Jason Rugg, who, what is your official title around here?
Tech director, I guess?
Tech director?
Yeah.
He helps with the Phil Vischer podcast, and he kind of makes sure that we don't screw up anything technical. And he's our fact checker. So as various issues come up in our discussion, he kind of throws them our way if we're off track. So if you wonder who that guy is on the video in the cap and the headphones, that's Jason. Okay, so I don't know what episode number this is. Are we on 10?
It's 10, yeah.
10. Is this our
10.
first one in 2017?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year.
Okay, so we do something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Let's start with something old. Josh, what's been on your mind? Old movie or whatever that you want to recommend to our audience?
Okay, because we're talking the crossover between television and movies in terms of quality and stuff like that. My something old is the television series Amazing Stories.
I don't recall that.
What? All right,
Maybe I
I'm
don't.
glad we're having this podcast today. It's Spielberg's creation.
Oh, vaguely.
It was on NBC.
Yeah.
It was on for 2 seasons, 45 episodes. They had directors Brad Bird, Tim Burton. It was always a different director.
When was this? What era?
85 to 87.
Okay, I vaguely remember this.
Oh, I lived for this show. Every week it was a different story. And like I said, they had different directors. They had different actors like Kevin Costner, Danny DeVito, a lot of actors you may not have heard of, ranging from ghost stories to World War II stories to present day, high school.
And were these 1 hour episodes?
I think they were an hour, yes. There might have been some half-hour ones.
And is this available to watch online or
if
DVD?
you go to the NBC app, you can watch.
Really?
Yeah.
So what was so good about them?
Well, one...
Spielberg was just producer. He didn't like write and direct any of the episodes.
I don't know. He was definitely involved. He definitely created it. I don't know how involved he was with directing any shows or writing, but it definitely had that Spielberg feel, that magical, like E.T., Goonies kind of look to it.
What J.J. Abrams wish he could do.
Exactly.
Kind of, yeah.
Exactly. So that was the first thing. Was it had a very movie quality feel to it. The second thing was every week it was completely different, which is unique because a lot of television shows you go back because you're familiar with the characters and the storylines.
Right.
And this one, every week, it's completely different.
So it was television behaving like movies.
Exactly. One of them was, I don't know if you ever saw The Family Dog. I know it led to a series. I don't remember what it was, but Brad Bird was involved in it. You would recognize the animation if you saw it.
It's animated.
It's animated.
Okay.
That episode. Every other, there's a picture of it. Amazing Stories.
Oh yeah. That's the Tim Burton dog. From,
Yeah.
What's it called? Frankenweenie?
Yeah.
Frankenweenie? Frankenwiener.
Frankenweenie.
Frankenweenie.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I'll look it up.
But all of them were live action except for that one.
Yeah.
But that was so great. Like you come, you're expecting something, and it's like, oh, this is totally brand new.
you
Yep,
go.
Frankenweenie. It looks
exactly
the same dog. But anyway, it was great. And if you like Spielberg, if you like stuff from the 80s, highly recommend it.
All right. I'm going to look into that.
Yeah.
Okay, mine also comes from the 80s, 1987. And you're going to think I'm silly when I mention this, but Adventures in Babysitting.
Oh, I don't.
Do you remember that movie?
Yeah, Thor was in that for crying out loud.
Yeah, the original Thor was in it. So Adventures in Babysitting, 1987. I discovered that this was actually the very first film directed by Chris Columbus.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, and he went on to direct the first couple Harry Potter movies,
Home Alone.
Home Alone, a lot of those family classics.
And the Goonies. Well, he wrote the Goonies.
Did he write the
Yeah,
Goonies?
he's a writer on the Goonies.
Well, there you go. So again, that 80s kind of
Yeah.
Spielbergish thing. Adventures in Babysitting starred Elizabeth Shue, who's just adorable, and her jerk boyfriend in the thing is Bradley Whitford, who was in West Wing. Josh on the West Wing.
Oh,
Remember him?
wow,
He was
yeah.
also the jerk in Revenge of the Nerds.
Okay.
Anyway, the movie, there's a couple interesting things about it. First of all, it's set here in Chicago, as a lot of those kind of brat packish movies were. And it's about a high school senior girl who's got to babysit these kids, including 2 guys who are not that much younger than her, and ends up having to take them into the city to rescue a friend of hers who's stuck at the bus station. And they get embroiled in just one crazy thing after another with the mob, and it's just one of those stories that would be absolutely and utterly impossible today with cell phones.
Right.
But makes it really interesting. The other thing that I kind of find interesting about it is the characters are fun, the settings are fun, the circumstances are wacky. It's one of the early movies that got a PG-13 rating.
It did.
Because, and they really, I think it exhibits, they didn't know quite what to do with that category yet. And it's a lot more adult than it probably should be.
Is it, do you know, maybe you don't know this, but because I feel like some movies were given a PG rating, and then when they re-release them on DVD, they re-rate them.
Really? I don't, because it was 87. I'm pretty sure that was...
Was PG-13 out?
I think it was.
We'll have to look
because
that
it
up.
came out in the wake of Gremlins and
that was
Raiders,
yeah.
right? And Temple of Doom.
When
all that. So I think by 85, it was
Okay.
probably out. But we watched it with our kids not that long ago because my wife really wanted to see it, and I was like, I don't know. I think there's a Playboy magazine in there that's not entirely obscured. The F-bomb is dropped here and there, but I mean, despite all that, it's you could tell they're like, well, is this a family movie or is this like a
right?
That category just hadn't been defined yet. But anyway, it is a really fun movie.
Okay,
and it's a way to introduce your kids to what life was like before cell phones.
So is Home Alone, by the way.
So is Home Alone, yeah. You know, I think we'll get into this in our something new segment in a second. But it's hard to imagine any really, really good movies that could translate to today's world because of cell phones.
Yeah, I think that's why you have to go. You do a lot of period pieces that they kind of like Stranger Things.
Yeah,
I mean, like Stranger Things was fun because they had to get around on their bikes and they couldn't.
And the kid
catch
gets
each
lost
other.
in the Upside Down,
Right?
And he couldn't just phone home,
right?
Right. All right. So there's something old, Adventures in Babysitting, and strange stories, or amazing stories.
Amazing stories.
Amazing stories. Okay. Something new. This week we're doing something a little bit different because for the first time, rather than talking about a film either on DVD or in the theaters, we are talking about a television program. But this is an unusual television program in that it behaves more like a movie.
Right.
So, Josh, introduce what our something new is this
All right,
week.
we're talking about Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock, which you can watch on PBS.
Right. It's actually a BBC thing, isn't it?
Yeah, I believe so.
So, and then, like every other hit on PBS, it actually is BBC, just reskinned.
Right, like Downton Abbey or something
Right.
like that. Okay. So Sherlock is in its 4th season. So it's January 9th today. So a week ago, they had their first episode of season 4.
But these seasons, I've seen them all. They're only like 2 or 3 episodes a season.
And about an hour and a half long each.
Right. So they're pretty much feature-length film episodes.
Yes.
Therefore, each season maybe 9 hours of content, but it's only 3 episodes or something.
Which is what made me think we should talk about it.
Not 9 hours, 6 hours.
Okay. Well, when I first got into this, it really... First, I was confused because I thought, wait, is this a movie or a TV show? Because...
Have you seen them all?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Just making
I'm
sure.
a fan. When I first saw it, I thought I was watching a film that they had made, and then I realized it was episodic, and there were going to be several of them. It was a little confusing because they're on different places like Netflix and PBS and so forth. But there's season 1 through 4, and each one's an hour and a half. But it really felt like I was watching a movie. And Benedict Cumberbatch, who is now a movie star, and even when it first came out, I mean, I think he was...
I'm not sure he's a real person.
Because he's so good?
Well, he's good, but the name.
Benedict?
Well, that's weird. How many Benedicts do you know?
Not many.
Not many, except the former Pope and Arnold, right?
Oh,
but
true.
Cumberbatch, really? that is so made up.
But you think if they were going to make up a name, you'd come up with something better than Cumberbatch.
I don't know. I don't think it's real, and I always mispronounce it anyway.
Well, whatever his real name is, he's one of the best actors out there. Today he's one of my.
And
all-time
Martin
favorite.
Freeman is Watson.
The Hobbit, yes.
Yeah,
he's in it.
Well, he was Watson before he was the Hobbit.
Oh, that's true.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was in other things.
Yeah,
I think one of your favorites, Love Actually.
Oh. Yeah.
We can skip that one, but yeah, he's in a lot of stuff. But so the feel of Sherlock is movie-esque. The length, the quality of production, the quality of acting. It's a very smart show. Anyway, do you have a proposal?
I do have a proposal.
Okay, I'll go with mine. Mine's pretty straightforward.
All right.
I do have a bunch of disclaimers to go on my proposal, but I'll just say it.
Okay.
I propose Sherlock is the best thing on television.
Oh, that's short and sweet and to the point. Okay. Mine's a little bit more Cumberbatchy. Cumbersome. Benedict Cumbersome.
All right.
I propose that at a time when studios are very reluctant to invest in any new ideas and instead just keep recycling old characters, Sherlock shows how to do it right.
Okay.
Because obviously Sherlock Holmes has been a character for a long, long time since Doyle wrote the books whenever they were written. There's been plenty of other movie and radio and television and drama, stage adaptations of his stories. But Sherlock, the new series, I think honors that old stuff without being captive to it and really brings a contemporary, refreshing perspective on the Sherlock character that it's done right. It's not just we're going to grab another old character that we know people will buy and spend money on so that we can make money. And I really appreciate the intelligence and creativity that's gone into this.
I agree. I saw Robert Downey Jr.'s Sherlock before I saw this. I don't know which one came first, but I saw the Robert Downey Jr. one first. When I heard about this one, I thought, I don't want to waste my time.
Right.
Because I would rather watch a movie than a TV show, quite honestly. Somehow I got onto it, and I thought, oh, this is better than the Robert Downey Jr. one.
Yeah.
And I know they're coming out with a third one.
Are they?
Yeah.
Who's the director of those?
Guy Ritchie?
Guy Ritchie, yeah. He used to be married to Madonna.
Right. And they were fine. They were good.
Yeah.
But to me, they're kind of forgettable, whereas this, I can't wait. I'm always sort of, when's the next season coming out?
So those who haven't seen it, it's set in modern day London. So it's, and getting back to the you can't do these stories without cell phones thing, this is an example, the Sherlock series, of they do have cell phones and they text, but they incorporate it into the stories, and the way it's depicted, even on the screen, is really, really well done. And I mean, that's a challenge for a storyteller to figure out how do you take these, adapt these old murder mysteries and bring them into contemporary settings with cell phones and digital technology and not just have it destroy your story. And they do it really, really well.
I think, I don't know who was the first one to do that. It was the first time I had seen it where someone's texting and you see what they're texting. I know they've done it in House of Cards and some other things.
I think Sherlock did it first in the original
It's the first time I
episode.
saw someone do it,
Yeah, back in season 1.
Very clever. And it's really, they really take it, you know, because Sherlock is a character that as a fan you love, but he's an unlikable human being.
Right.
And so with the cell phones, I mean, he's just so rude when it comes to that, you know, like just texting and not just in his behavior, but I like how they use his cell phone to emphasize his rudeness and ignoring other people.
Yeah, Benedict Cabbage Patch, whatever his name is. He's got that perfect, bizarre mix of he's such just a jerk, right? And he's got that arrogant persona about him, and yet there's something about him that you like.
Right. He is fun to watch, and you do like him. You don't hate him. There's a lot of qualities, you know, because you think about
But he treats the people around him like such garbage.
Yeah.
It's kind of like House. You remember House, that medical show? That's similar. Like, he's so brilliant, you have to admire him, but that gives him a license to be a jackass.
Right.
And
well, the other comparison I thought of was Homer Simpson. Homer Simpson's fun to watch, but if you actually knew someone in real life like Homer Simpson, you would hate that guy and you would avoid him at all costs, right?
Yeah.
And I think if we knew Sherlock in real life, we would not want to hang out with that guy.
Right, and that makes me wonder about Watson. Like, what is it that
He
keeps
is
him?
glutton for punishment.
Yeah, why does he keep coming back?
You should have seen last night's episode.
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it.
Yeah, I saw. Did you see episode 1?
Yeah.
Okay. On a side note, I was not a fan of episode 1 of season 4.
Why? Because of the ending? Spoilers.
Oh, yeah, the big spoiler, the whole Mary Watson character, her background, I just couldn't buy into it. Everything else I thought was great, past seasons. There was one murder mystery in the past that I thought was not, I couldn't buy into it at all. It was the one where the guy, he was a guard, and when he took his clothes off to change, he died. And no one was in the room. Do you remember this one?
No.
It was a changing of the guards. You know,
Yeah.
Okay,
I
so
saw it, but I don't recall real carefully.
The way it happened seemed impossible to me. I thought, how could they even do
There
this?
are a lot of very bizarre, even in this recent episode, there's a bizarre death that Sherlock solves in like 10 seconds.
Oh, right.
Right, with the kid.
Even that one made more sense to me than
There are some,
guard,
yeah,
but-
it's bizarre for sure. I agree with you though. The Mary Watson character, who's married to John Watson, spoiler alert, turns out that she was like
Special
a
forces. of
special
some kind.
forces spy-ish rogue agent kind of thing, and maybe it's brilliant. I don't know. I'm not necessarily a judge of these things, but like she seems like such a sweet, gentle-spirited, mild character. Like
Right.
really, she's a hardened killer.
Right.
All
Who
right.
happens to be married to
Right.
Watson?
Yeah,
and is
yeah.
friends with Sherlock
But it
Holmes.
is still it's riveting television.
It is.
And I'm grateful that I had it streaming on. I got it on the PBS app because I could stop and like back up because there's so many things that I miss, either because of the English accents or because I'm distracted by the cat-like eyes of Benjamin Cumberbund, whatever his name is. Like, there's just weird things that go on, and you're like, wait, why is he talking about Moriarty and what's it? And so I have to keep backing up and like refreshing. Or if I get distracted for 10 seconds by a child, I'm like, I gotta go back because you miss anything and it's gone.
Yeah.
So if you can get it streaming, that's really the way to do it.
And on a side note, Moriarty is a fantastic bad guy in
Yeah.
the series, which is kind of hard to come by in television, I think. So, and earlier when I said this is the best thing on television, I have disclaimers. I wouldn't say this is my favorite television show, but I love watching it. I'm certainly a huge fan of it. It's one of my favorites, and it's one of those where it's smart, it's funny. It's like watching a movie. Almost anyone can watch this because and that's one of the things that gets me excited about this is there are so many great shows on television, but something happens, you're like, I can't recommend
Too
this.
violent, too sexual,
Right.
too whatever.
Right.
Yeah, and you're right. I think it's because it's BBC. There's really no profanity.
I don't think they swear at all.
And they're English, so they're like
Maybe.
super uptight. If they swear, if they swear, it's like
We don't get it.
We don't get it exactly. It's something that we don't find offensive.
Right.
And I don't recall there being any real nudity or sexuality in the show. Maybe I'm forgetting past episodes, but
In something like season 2, there was a little bit.
You-
Like Irene Adler's character.
you seem to have this very well memorized.
I really like the show.
Oh,
I've watched it like 3 or
well,
4
anyway,
times.
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily have my kids sit down and watch it because they'd probably be.
Well,
I mean, it's engrossing.
But if they
like-
wanted to,
yeah.
I'd be like, oh yeah, let's watch it together.
Yeah, it's not.
Where my daughter wants
not
to watch
offensive.
the OA, and I'm like, you can't.
What's
watch it.
OA?
We'll talk about it.
Oh, hey. Okay. So I think it goes without saying that we're both totally in favor of this show, and we would totally watch it again. And we will watch it again because there's a new episode out this week.
Yeah, in fact, it came out last night.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet, which because I've been engrossed in something else, which we will get to in our Something Blue segment.
Oh, okay.
But you found an interesting article. This gets to our Something Borrowed segment.
Yes. So this is from Entertainment Weekly, and basically it's the title. This is from a couple years ago, and the title is television better than the movies? Because there's been an influx of new television shows through streaming channels like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon and so
People are
forth.
calling it the golden age of television.
It is. And like Sherlock, where you can have a movie-esque or movie quality program, it can be you can have a half hour, or whatever episodic season, and then have it continue in the next season. if
Right.
it's
And
good
people
enough.
will binge watch
Right.
these things, and you can follow characters and get much more development. And it's a complete transformation of the way we think and engage television.
Right. And so the question was, is TV now better than the movies? And it was a short article. One person they asked 2 people, 2 film critics, and one was kind of leaning towards yes, and the other was kind of leaning towards like, well, the comparison you're making is you're comparing television to movies, which movies is the higher standard. So it's still the higher standard. So it's not quite there. But either way, I thought it was a good
I'm not sure that's true anymore.
that movies are better.
Yeah. Or that it's the higher standard. Because when you think about, like, look, we talked about this in a prior episode. You look at what's going on in movies. You have all these superhero movies, and you have, whether you're looking at Marvel or DC or now Star Wars, they're creating cinematic universes.
Right.
Which is essentially, they're creating serials, episodic stories that build from one to another, which is what a television show used to be.
Correct.
So movies are becoming more like television. Television is becoming more like movies. I think there's this blending of these media that's going on, and I don't think you're seeing more standalone 2-hour television events. You're seeing more movies that are expanding into serial kind of franchises more like television series. So if anything, I'd argue movies are trying to become more like television shows rather than just television shows are rising to the standard of movies.
Okay. Maybe they can spin off into television shows?
Right, and you see some of that with Marvel where they're
did
going
that.
back and forth now between their Netflix series and their movies.
So here, this is what I thought we could just kind of share real quickly. Like, what would be some of your favorite in the last 5-10 years television shows that would be, you know, that you would rank pretty high as compared to seeing a movie or something like that?
Well, this one is not last 5-10 years. It's a little earlier than that, but The West Wing, which I never watched an episode of West Wing when it was actually on television.
Oh, okay.
I binge watched the whole thing with my wife some years ago. We got them from the library or watched them on Netflix. Mad Men, which is just phenomenal and depraved all at the same time. What else have we sort of got into Friday Night Lights.
Okay.
Amanda watched the whole thing, my wife.
Yeah.
I didn't quite finish it because I had to travel. I've been into The Crown. Have you been watching The Crown?
No, but I want to now. It won at least one Golden Globe,
Yeah.
if not a few.
That's really, really good. I'm trying to think of others that would be from the last 5 years.
Well, interestingly, so the Golden Globes was on this week, and of the 5 dramatic shows that were nominated for best TV shows and drama, only one was on network television,
Yeah.
and the other 4 were all from streaming services.
Okay, do you recall what any of them were?
Well, the one from network television was This Is Us,
Yeah.
which my wife loves.
Yeah, so is mine.
I thought episode 1 was good, and I could do without the
rest of them.
I jumped ship off of that one. There was The Crown, which I think won. Stranger Things was up there. I don't remember what the other 2 were.
Well, those 2 are both Netflix series.
Yes, there were definitely 2 Netflix, and then I think there's a Hulu and another one.
Yeah. Well, it shows television is utterly transforming.
Maybe The Night Of and Night Manager. I think those were the other 2.
I don't know either of
The
those.
Night Of is an HBO.
Okay. All right, sorry, we had a little technical hiccup there. We had a cumber burp.
Man, you are good with this Cumberbatch thing.
Oh, yeah. I've got a bunch of them. Pumpkin patch. Cumber butts. Cucumber.
I won't even try to compete.
Let's see what. I wrote another one down here. Oh, I'll save that one for
You
later.
had notes?
I was
That's
streaming out.
cheating.
I've not been looking at them. But
True, I can
there was
concur.
one that I found that cracked me up.
So we were talking about Golden Globes nominations for Best Drama Series. The Night Of is an HBO series about a guy who gets in trouble and you're not sure if he's innocent or guilty. And I think it focuses on the attorney, who is the tall actor from Barton Fink. He's in a lot of Coen Brother films.
Okay.
All right. And then Night Manager, which I don't know anything about, Thor's brother Loki.
Oh
that
yeah,
actor.
Tom Hiddleston.
Yeah, and then
Hiddlestick?
House, Hugh Laurie.
Hugh Laurie,
Yeah, they were both.
which sounds like an English truck brand.
That's right.
So here's my theory as to why television is now better than the movies. I blame China.
Okay. I know where you're going with this. Go ahead. Yeah.
This isn't like a Trump thing.
No, I know.
So in order for Hollywood releases to make tons of money, they have to appeal to the Chinese market
Right.
now. And then what the Chinese market appears to reward are like Transformers movies and the Fast and Furious movies, just action. They don't really reward deep character development and intriguing plot and all of that. So I think as Hollywood goes more toward just how many CGI effects can we put on a screen that blows people up, the small screen, the television series are moving to where writers who care deeply and filmmakers who care deeply about rich character and plot development are going there. And they can develop their stories over, instead of 90 minutes or 120 minutes, they can do it over 12 episodes. And the depth of storytelling and character development, which you used to see more in Hollywood pictures, is migrating over to the television and these streaming services.
Well, they certainly have the time to.
Right. So,
do
but
that.
I don't think it's just a matter of the time. I think they also have the creative license that we will give you the ability to develop deep character and story without just having to blow things up every 10 minutes.
Probably because they have more freedom because there's less money involved.
Well, I don't know if there's less money involved. I think the source of the money is different. They don't need the Chinese audience when you have Hulu and Netflix and millions of people who are paying for those services and HBO subscriptions that are funding these projects.
Well, one thing that's certainly different is television can take greater risks because there are things we see on TV that would never work in movies, even though they could you could say, oh, well, that could have worked in a movie, but they never would have been made as a movie because it was so this will never work. But then somehow they get the freedom to do that, wherever the money's coming from, whatever it is. One of those shows I'll talk about in a minute. But for me, I saw Sing, the movie Sing, with my kids in the theater, and I saw the movie La La Land with my wife in the theater.
Okay. And
both of those films are movies that you really need to see in the theaters. Like Rogue One, for example, just because they're cinematic. Yeah. It was an experience that even though technically, with technology and things in your home, you can have a nice cinematic quote experience. I mean, to be in an audience and have that giant screen in front of you and actors larger than life and that kind of stuff, that's why I think movies are still better than television.
Well, you could just get a bigger house and put in a home theater and invite some friends over.
A lot of friends.
A lot of friends. No, I get it. There is something magical about a big theater experience and cinematic. I don't begrudge you that. But, I mean, go back to 1977. Star Wars comes out. Everyone agrees it's a phenomenal movie on many, many fronts. I wonder if George Lucas hadn't done it, that if he were doing it today, would he want that to be a movie, or would he rather adapt that into? I mean, how many of us wouldn't have loved to have it had a 10-part series about Luke on Tatooine and the Death Star and Darth Vader? I mean, I just wonder if looking back, our kids are going to say, oh, all the best stories that we grew up with were actually rooted in television, not just movies. And even go back to Marvel. Can you name a single Marvel movie that is just phenomenal, or is it really its placement in the whole cinematic universe that makes that fascinating? The serial nature of it.
If there is one, it's
sorry.
if there's one, it's Iron Man. But
the first Iron Man.
Yeah, the first.
Well,
one.
That's because it wasn't really designed to be part of the cinematic universe. So I still love movies. That's why we do this podcast. But I'm really, really impressed with what's going on the small screen and television. Yeah. Okay. We are drawing close to the end here. We have one segment left, and that is to talk about something blue. This is something that either blew chunks because it was so bad that we saw recently, or that blew our minds because it was so good.
All right. I have a blue mind.
Okay.
Do you have a blue mind?
I have a blue mind also.
Oh, okay. All right. I'll go first. So I mentioned earlier the OA.
The OA.
The OA. OA.
What is OA?
Well, it's a show on Netflix.
Again, to my point.
And I picked it because I actually have a couple of movies that blew my mind, but I'm going to stick with television for right now.
Okay.
The OA, I don't know how we got hooked on it. Angie and I read some things and we decided, it was compared to Stranger Things. That's what it was.
Okay.
That's what got me interested in it. We start watching it. After every episode, there's 8 episodes, my wife always says, this show is so weird. And I always think that's the end. And it is very weird. The premise is a woman in her 20s who's been missing for the last 7 years shows up out of the blue. When she was missing as a girl, she was blind. But now she's back, came out of the blue. We don't know where she was, but now she can see. And she's really not telling anyone where she's been or what happened to her. And so what she does is...
She went to a Benny Hinn revival, didn't she?
Not too far from her. But what she does is she gathers up 5 just misfits, kind of like people that are the outcasts, the people who are the loners. There's something wrong with them in society's eyes. And she gets them all together and they meet and she's telling the story of what happened. So the television show is part her telling the story of what happened and part what's going on in the lives of these people, because it takes days for her to get through this story. Okay. And it is really weird. It's not for kids. My daughter wanted to watch it.
What does OA stand for?
Well, I can't tell you.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. It's revealed in either the last or second to last episode. But here's the thing I love about it.
OA sounds like what Canadians say at a fireworks display.
Oh.
Well, they actually come up with that. I won't give it away. It doesn't just stand for something. It's weird. But I love the quality of it.
Even
There's
the
a picture of
poster's
it.
kind of like, ooh,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
It's
could
very
that be?
mysterious.
That is messed up.
What is it?
It is. The quality is great. The acting is great. The script is great. It's got some questionable things in there. It kept me up at night. I couldn't sleep.
Like you were bothered?
Oh, yeah.
Like disturbed.
Yeah. Not because of the images I saw necessarily, but about the content, like what's going on. It's like a much darker Stranger Things.
Okay.
So I cautionally recommend it.
All right. So this was not pre-planned. You're talking OA.
Uh-oh.
I'm talking OJ. I have been completely addicted. Now, there's a couple different OJ things out there right now.
Which one?
It's OJ Made in America.
That's the...
This is the ESPN documentary.
Oh, the documentary.
It's almost 8 hours.
Oh, my goodness.
It's 3 parts. Actually, I think it's 6 parts, but they're lumped into 3. It's currently streaming on Hulu. And I've watched the whole thing. So, I mean, we're almost the same age, but I remember vividly 1994, the Bronco chase, the court case, the whole, and growing up, he was this huge superstar athlete and the Naked Gun movies. But what blew my mind about this documentary was not just OJ's story and his addiction to fame and his narcissism and the horrible abuse that his wife Nicole had to endure and the way that his celebrity got him off the hook over and over and over again. And it wasn't just the really, I feel, sleazy job that his lawyers did to get him off the hook and playing the race card and all that. But the really brilliant part of this documentary was it places the OJ trial in the broader cultural context of race in America. And in particular, the decades of abuse the black community in Los Angeles had suffered at the hands of the LAPD. And if you recall, OJ was arrested about 2 years after Rodney King and that beating that happened in 1992 that was caught on camera, and all the white officers were acquitted. So it places it all in this bigger context. And for me, what kind of blew my mind as I watched this documentary, I mean, there's so many levels of, like, my pastoral kind of perspective comes in here about what happens when we're addicted to fame and it's just the corruption of the heart and all that. But what really got me was the reason OJ got off was because the jury was predominantly black, and a number of the jurors came out and said they acquitted OJ not because they thought he was innocent, but because they thought the LAPD was so corrupt that they must have framed yet another black guy.
Oh, wow.
And what it showed me was when the police engage in systemic abuse of a community, it so erodes trust that when a legitimate crime is being committed, the community no longer trusts you to prosecute that crime fairly. And we still see that today. In many parts of our country, there's a lot of distrust, particularly between African-American communities and the police officers. And a lot of us in the suburbs, or who are white, or who don't maybe fear police that way, we go, oh, whatever, it's not our issue, it's not our problem. It is our issue, it is our problem, because when there isn't trust in the police, the entire justice system can become corrupted by that. And anyway, it's a wonderful insight, not just into a particular man's tragic fall from stardom and this incredible, horrible crime that happened and the craziness of our culture at the time, but it really gives you an amazing insight into race relations in America that is great. And I know there's that other one, there's The People versus O.J. Simpson, which is a dramatization.
Yes.
I watched a little bit of that, and I'm intrigued by it, but this documentary is so well done.
Okay, so say the name of the documentary.
It's OJ Made in America.
And that's on Hulu.
It is on Hulu. I forget what we were talking about exactly, but...
Oh, the name of the... Okay, so what's the name of the dramas?
The dramatization where Cuba Gooding Jr. plays OJ
Yes.
is The People versus O.J. Simpson.
American Crime Story.
American Crime Story.
So
yeah.
Sarah Paulson won a Golden Globe for that.
And she played Marsha Clark, I think,
Yes.
the prosecuting attorney.
Yes.
Yeah, I actually watched a little bit of that, and I'm intrigued by that one. I'm like all into OJ now all of a sudden. And this documentary, though, the OJ Made in America, begins with his upbringing and childhood and all that in the projects outside San Francisco, and it goes all the way up to the present day because he's in prison today for a ridiculous crime, robbery in Nevada that he was a part of, and so it covers everything, the whole story of this guy. But again, it's just so well done, and I'm grateful it wasn't just a 2-hour movie. I'm grateful that it's 8 hours of in-depth documentary and just phenomenally well told.
Do you have Netflix and Hulu?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But I don't have cable television. I don't pay for cable. We have an antenna, so we pay for Netflix and Hulu.
Well, how do you get internet?
We pay for the internet.
All right, we got to talk after this. Because we have the low cable because we can get internet.
Right.
But then we don't have Hulu. But we only watch Netflix. But
Yeah.
okay. Good stuff.
All right, so there's another episode. We're grateful for you guys chiming in. Give us your thoughts and comments about Sherlock, about Adventures in Babysitting, about Amazing Stories, about the OA, or anything about OJ. We're open to it. And also, if you have suggestions for upcoming movies or past movies that you want us to discuss, we will take that into consideration, but we never give our audience more credit than they deserve. So, if it's a bad suggestion, we're not going to listen to it. But anyway, I'm kidding. We are grateful for all the feedback and interest in this stuff, and we will see you next time. Until then, you can kiss this episode goodbye.
The game, Mrs. Hudson, is on.